The racist police officer unjustly arrested a woman of color, suspecting that her expensive handbag was stolen, without realizing her son was a high-profile attorney in the nation's capital. When the truth emerged, his life turned upside down. This is not just a story about justice, but also a testament to resilience and the strength of community. It was a cool spring afternoon in Charleston. The air carried a soft tang of salt from the nearby harbor, and the sun cast long golden rays across the cobblestone streets. The city bustled with tourists snapping photos of the historic architecture, but for Ava Robinson, this day was meant to be an escape from her usual routine. Ava, a dignified woman in her late 60s, had lived in Charleston her entire life. It was a city of memories, some sweet, others bitter. Today, after weeks of caregiving for her ill neighbor, she decided to take a rare moment for herself. Clad in a crisp, white dress and her favorite sun hat, she walked with the poise of someone who carried not just herself, but generations of resilience. She carried with her a handbag that had been passed down from her grandmother, a deep burgundy leather piece with signs of age but rich in sentimental value. It wasn't a designer bag, but to Ava, it was priceless. As she strolled down Market Street, passing boutiques and cafes, she felt a fleeting sense of lightness, a respite from the burdens of life. Yet that sense of calm didn't last. As she stepped into a small boutique known for its curated collection of artisan crafts, she noticed the subtle shift in the atmosphere. The clerk at the counter stiffened slightly, her eyes darting toward Ava's handbag. A few patrons exchanged glances, their whispers barely audible, but their intentions clear. Ava was used to these unspoken judgments. They'd been a part of her life since she was young. Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself that she belonged here just as much as anyone else. The boutique was quiet, except for the soft hum of a jazz tune playing overhead. Ava picked up a ceramic vase to inspect its delicate detailing when a sharp voice broke the stillness. "Excuse me, ma'am," said a man standing by the doorway. Ava turned to see a tall, burly police officer in uniform. His presence filled the small space with an imposing air. His badge read Officer Grant Mitchell, and his face bore an expression of suspicion. "Can I help you, officer?" Ava asked calmly, though her pulse quickened. "That bag," he said, pointing. "It looks high-end. Mind if I see some proof it's yours?" Ava stiffened, her grip tightening on the strap of her handbag. "This bag is mine. It's been in my family for generations." Officer Mitchell's eyes narrowed. "Generations, huh? Doesn't seem like something someone like you would own." The words hung in the air like a slap. The few customers in the boutique froze, their faces painted with a mix of shock and discomfort. Ava's heart burned with anger, but she kept her composure. "Officer, unless you have a valid reason to suspect me of a crime, I don't think you have the right to question me," Ava said firmly. But Mitchell was undeterred. "Hand over the bag, ma'am, or things are going to escalate." Without waiting for her consent, he reached out and yanked the handbag from her grasp. Gasps erupted around the room. Ava stepped forward, her voice rising. "You have no right to do that." "I'm doing my job," Mitchell replied curtly, opening the bag and rummaging through its contents. Personal items spilled out onto the counter, a small photo of Ava's late mother, a tube of hand cream, and a leather-bound journal. Each item felt like a violation of her privacy. The boutique's manager, a young woman in her 30s, hesitated before stepping forward. "Officer, is this really necessary?" "Stay out of it," Mitchell barked, causing the manager to retreat. Ava stood tall, her voice unwavering despite the lump forming in her throat. "You're abusing your authority," she said. "You will regret this." Mitchell smirked. "You can file a complaint if you want, but until then, this bag stays with me." Before Ava could respond, the door to the boutique swung open, and a tall, sharp-dressed man entered. His presence immediately commanded attention. It was Julian Robinson, Ava's son, and a senior attorney in Washington, D.C. Ava's eyes lit up with relief. "Mom, what's going on here?" Julian's voice was calm, but carried an undercurrent of restrained fury. Ava gestured toward Mitchell. "This officer claims my handbag is stolen and has taken it without cause." Julian's expression hardened as he turned to Mitchell. "Is that true?" Mitchell straightened, clearly caught off guard by Julian's commanding presence. "She was acting suspiciously," he said defensively. "Just doing my job." Julian stepped closer, his tone sharp. And what evidence do you have to support your suspicion? Because from where I stand, it looks like you've just violated my mother's constitutional rights." Mitchell's smirk faltered. "Look, I was just—" "Save it." Julian cut him off. "Return her bag now, or I will ensure this incident is taken to the highest levels of law enforcement oversight. And believe me, Officer Mitchell, you do not want to test me." The room was silent. Mitchell hesitated, then grudgingly handed the bag back to Ava. "Here," he muttered, avoiding her gaze. Julian turned to the boutique's manager. "I'd like your name and contact information as a witness. This isn't over." The manager nodded, her face pale but resolute. As Julian and Ava left the boutique, a crowd of onlookers had gathered outside. Ava's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her handbag. Julian placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay, Mom?" he asked softly. Ava nodded, though her voice wavered. "I'm tired, Julian. Tired of fighting battles like this." Julian's jaw tightened. "You won't have to fight this one alone. I'll make sure he's held accountable." What followed was a relentless pursuit of justice. Julian filed formal complaints against Mitchell, rallying support from civil rights organizations and leveraging his connections within the legal system. The incident gained media attention, sparking outrage and bringing to light similar cases of misconduct. Ava's story became a rallying cry for change, inspiring others to come forward with their own experiences. The police department launched an internal investigation, and as more evidence of Mitchell's pattern of abuse surfaced, he found himself cornered. Public pressure mounted, leading to policy reforms aimed at curbing racial profiling and holding officers accountable. Through it all, Ava remained steadfast, her dignity intact. She spoke at community meetings, sharing her story and encouraging others to demand justice. Julian stood by her side, his legal expertise amplifying her voice. Together, they not only held Mitchell accountable, but also ignited a broader movement for systemic change. In the end, the handbag that had sparked the ordeal became a symbol of resilience and solidarity, a reminder that even in the face of injustice, strength and unity could prevail. As Ava's story gained more attention, community groups began to rally around her cause. Local leaders invited her to speak at town hall meetings, and her voice became a powerful beacon of hope for many who had experienced similar injustices. Ava's courage inspired a wave of testimonials from others who had been silenced for too long. One woman, Rosa Alvarez, shared her own experience of being stopped by the police on her way to work because of her ethnicity. A young man, Marcus Taylor, spoke about being falsely accused of shoplifting as a teenager. Ava's story became a catalyst for a movement that demanded accountability from law enforcement and systemic change across the city. Julian's legal prowess became instrumental in these efforts. He partnered with civil rights attorneys and advocacy organizations to file a class action lawsuit against the Charleston Police Department, highlighting a pattern of racial profiling and abuse. The evidence was damning, including internal emails that revealed a culture of prejudice within the department. The case reached national headlines, sparking debates about police reform and the role of implicit bias in law enforcement. Julian's eloquence and passion during interviews made him a prominent figure in the fight for justice. Ava, though hesitant to be in the spotlight, embraced her role as a community leader, drawing strength from the support of those who stood with her. Meanwhile, Officer Mitchell's life unraveled. The internal investigation revealed multiple complaints against him, most of which had been swept under the rug by his superiors. Public outcry demanded his suspension, and he faced charges of misconduct and abuse of power. His arrogance, once a shield, crumbled under the weight of accountability. As the trial unfolded, Ava and Julian remained steadfast. Ava's testimony was a powerful moment, her voice steady as she recounted the humiliation she endured. Julian presented a compelling case, meticulously dismantling Mitchell's defense and exposing the systemic failures that had allowed his behavior to persist. In the courtroom, the jury listened intently as witness after witness described their encounters with Mitchell. The boutique manager testified, her voice trembling as she recalled the officer's aggression. Marcus Taylor's testimony was particularly moving, as he described how the false accusations against him had shattered his confidence as a young boy. The verdict was a turning point. Officer Mitchell was found guilty of misconduct and removed from the police force. The Charleston Police Department faced a federal review, leading to widespread reforms, including mandatory bias training and the establishment of an independent oversight committee. For Ava, the victory was bittersweet. She knew the fight for justice was far from over, but she also recognized the power of her voice and the strength of the community that had rallied around her. The handbag, once a cherished family heirloom, now symbolized something much greater: the resilience of a community united against injustice. In the months that followed, Ava continued to speak out, her story echoing far beyond Charleston. Julian's work expanded to other cities, where similar patterns of abuse were being challenged. Together, they proved that even in the face of systemic oppression, change was possible when people stood together with courage and determination.